Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 3 of Mazda Motorsports Moments. I'm your host, Tony Laporta. On today's episode, we go back to Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and Road America as our 4 drivers of the pair of Mazda RT24Ps talk, joke, and reminisce with each other about that 3rd win in a row from the summer of 2019. Also joining on the show today, we've got Mo Murray from Mazda Motorsports as he sheds a little bit of light on some topics we normally don't get to talk about. So stick with us, because here we go as we head back to Road America. So now we're joined by the 4 horsemen, as Mazda Motorsports calls them, the drivers that campaign all IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship long in the pair of Mazda RT24Ps. In the number 77, we're joined by Oliver Jarvis and Tristan Nunez. Ollie, Tristan, we've talked to both you guys individually through the first 2 weeks of Mazda Motorsports Moments. Ollie, thanks for joining us, man. Everything going okay back in England?
Yeah, it's all good back here in the UK. Things slowly returning to normal, but just be nice to get back to the track, to be honest. So delighted that IMSA have announced we're going back to racing. And, I'm really looking forward to it, I have to say. It's been too long.
Yeah, and Tristan, same to you. Things are good out on the East Coast?
Yeah, things are great. Obviously missing my teammates. Want to get back to the racetrack. But yeah, just practicing social distancing and keeping fit. And, just trying to stay busy, stay out of trouble until the racing comes along.
I hear you. So the drivers of the number 77, we spoke to Tristan and Jonathan Bomarito last week because the 77 scored the win at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. And then joining us from the number 55 Mazda RT24P, they were the victors at Watkins Glen that kicked off that really exciting summer. Harry Tinknell and Jonathan Bomarito. Tinknell, your second time back on the show with us. Thanks for calling in. Thanks for joining us. Everything going okay back home?
Thanks a lot. Yeah, all okay. The weather has turned in the UK now. We've got some sunshine, so more like Florida weather than traditional UK weather. And restrictions are starting to be eased, as Ollie said, and let's hope we're back soon, hopefully start of July.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bomber, beautiful outdoor background. Once again, it looks like you're enjoying a little bit of time to yourself right now.
Yeah, beautiful here out on sunny California. Just finished chopping some wood and, killing some dinner. But always good to be on the show. Good to see everybody's face and hear your voices. And like Ollie said, just can't wait to be back on track.
Absolutely. Chopping down trees and killing dinner is what we would expect a man with that beard to be doing. So to our 4 Mazda RT24P pilots, we appreciate you guys joining. And let's just jump right into it. We're obviously talking about the 3rd race in a row where Mazda gets back to victory lane. This time, a very emotional and a very special victory at Road America. Harry, I'll start with you, and then Bomber, if you would just kind of come in after Harry and offer your thoughts. You guys in the 55, you go out and you win Watkins Glen, and then you're dominating at CTMP, just to have some late race drama kind of unseat you. Now you roll into Wisconsin, you put the car P4 in qualifying. Harry, and then Bomber, you can follow him up. How did you guys feel about your number 55 RT24P going into the race at Road America?
Yeah, I think looking at the season as a whole, I think Road America is one of the races we were sort of targeting as being very competitive. And then obviously we had an exceptionally good run at Watkins and then at Mosport. And the BOP changed quite radically for Watkins, and that actually looked like maybe it wasn't going to be such a good track for us. And I think we were just trying to ride the momentum and just get the car as high as possible. But certainly it seemed like we didn't have a winning car. I think I remember hearing myself in the interview afterwards saying I thought we had a 4th and 5th place car. But so in testing, we were just trying to get as good race pace as possible, as good at practicing the fuel saving, and obviously for JB to get quali sims in to do a good job in qualifying, which he did.
Yeah, I agree with Harry there. We really were focusing, I remember at this race, a lot on race pace, balance over a stint, how our tire wear was, because we knew the stints were going to be pretty long, pretty hard on tires. So trying to manage that and just find a comfortable race car. Both Mazdas qualifying 3rd and 4th, we kind of went into the race knowing it was a long shot, but just wanting to save fuel, be there at the end, and just be there to race if we had an opportunity and maybe take some advantages in traffic. So it was overall was all going to plan. But like Harry alluded to, with that big BOP hit, we kind of went into it with the attitude of it's going to be pretty tough to pull this one off.
See, that's great. See, the number 55 car doing a fantastic job of teasing our next segment. We're about to bring Mo Murray from Mazda Motorsports in to talk about, as Harry hit on, the BOP adjustments heading into Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. And then we're going to come back and talk about the racing and hit on something Bomarito just hinted at, the traffic and getting around that place with GT cars, which Mr. Bomarito did a pretty good job of. So coming up next, we've got Mo Murray from Mazda Motorsports. So now joining us from Mazda Motorsports, Mr. Mo Murray, the one and only. Mo, we've been talking to the drivers, and they kind of alluded to it already. I'll let you discuss it at greater length, the BOP adjustments that were handed down heading into Road America.
Thank you, Tony. Yes, the famous BOP system that IMSA uses. So firstly, let me tell you that from Mazda's perspective, we like BOP. We're in favor of BOP. And the reason is, you know, if you're going to run a race series and have any sort of control over the parity or the entertainment that belongs in a race series, you have to have some way to make sure that people aren't going to spend their way to the front, right? You do that one of two ways. You can either run essentially a spec series. So think of IndyCar, where the cars are all the same. There's two engines, but they're all built exactly to the same formula. Or even Formula One, the window of opportunity for engineers to be innovative is so narrow these days that it's approaching spec series. The other approach is to let people build whatever they want, bring whatever engine they want, but control the relative performance with things like BOP. That's the direction that IMSA has taken. And frankly, IMSA has done a very good job with BOP. If you look at across the 2019 season, Mazda won 3 races, Acura won 3 races, and Cadillac won 4. That would tell me that they pretty much got it right. The people who run BOP and the calculations for the IMSA side are pretty clever. And so that's overall our position on BOP. But if we think back to last summer, actually, if we think back to the last 5 years, Mazda had not won a race in our prototype era. And so we benefited from BOP. We were not slowed down. We didn't get a lot of weight added as the other cars were adjusted all along. So then we show up at Watkins Glen and we win a race. We dominate. We go 1-2. The very next race is only 1 week later. So there's no time for a BOP adjustment. So we go to Mosport and we have another great weekend. Now a month goes by before we get to Road America. And of course, IMSA steps in with an expected BOP adjustment. We have no issue with that. That's the system we've bought into. That's the system that IMSA operates in and does a good job with. So we have no issue going into that race. But the reality of that situation is we were added 20 kilos in minimum weight, and all these cars are running just over minimum weight. So our weight went up by 20 kilos, which is significant. And we lost, through the restrictions in the turbo system we use, we lost about 17 horsepower. So now we're showing up with our little engine. Remember, we use an inline-4 2-liter turbo engine against the V6s and V8s of our competitors with much bigger displacement. We lost a significant amount of horsepower, and we're carrying more weight, arriving at a racetrack that has big, long straightaways and a huge, big hill climbing up out of the last corner. And for big, long straightaways and a big hill, you need low weight and lots of power. So we went to Road America not really thinking we were going to be in the ballpark for a win. We wanted to get through the weekend coming off of 2 wins with a nice haul of points and try and keep the momentum going till we got back to what we consider more favorable tracks like WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, or even Road Atlanta, Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, where Petit Le Mans was going to close out the season. But going into Road America, we weren't thinking that the Mazdas were going to sit atop the podium. And so the result that we ended up with was a big surprise, but spectacular.
Certainly, with that adjustment, it's understandable that everyone was cautiously optimistic heading into the weekend. We're going to check back in now with our 4 drivers of the Mazda RT24Ps and see exactly how the race at Road America went. Now we're into the race. We already talked about Mazda Motorsports puts the cars all in row 2, P3 and P4. Then we get going. And when this race gets going, guys, the Acuras take off. It was Acura Team Penske on the front row, Mazda Motorsports Team Yost in the second row. And I want to skip to about an hour into the race, just about an hour 42 to go. Bomarito, you talked about dealing with traffic. if you can remember specifically, I think we're going to play a clip of it. You guys are coming through the last couple corners at Road America. You're coming up 14, and you get this massive run on the 6 car and Juan Montoya. The aero of that Mazda RT24P looked fantastic. Do you remember what I'm talking about? And what did the car feel like once you got up behind that Acura in front of you?
Yeah, I do remember that, Tony. Up that front straight, if you can get in the draft, it's kind of going up a hill up the main straight. And I had a good run off of turn 14. We came in through Canada Corner, 12, 13, 14. We were in a group of probably 3 or 4 GT cars and was able to manage that maybe a little bit better than Juan did in that particular set of corners, and was able to get a good run. He went defensive to the inside, kind of showed my nose to the outside, got about halfway alongside of him, and didn't make the force the issue, I guess we'll say, into turn 1 quite so much as Harry did later in the race to pull it off. But I don't know, Harry, maybe that I showed you something there, maybe, who knows?
I'm always learning for you, JB. Experience under your belt.
So anyways, I didn't push the issue. Juan did a good job defending it at turn 1 and tried to do the over-under down to turn 3, but couldn't quite get the run. Really at that point in the race, I knew I'd be handing the car over to Harry pretty soon. And, you're just trying to give him put the car in the best position, all the dive planes on the car. At the end of my double stint, we pitted directly behind the 2 Penske's. So I felt like I had accomplished my job at that point and turned it over to my super fast teammate.
I think that was the pit stop that you're talking about where you exchanged the car over to Tink. Now, you do talk about coming in right behind the Acuras. I think that's the pit stop where the 7 gets out and then the 6 slips in right behind the 7 and right in front of Harry. So before we talk about Tinknell's stint in the car, I want to go back over to the 77. Now, Ollie, kind of the same thing as you. I want you to start, and then Tristan, if you'd follow him up. But you guys were consistently right there, now in 3rd, 4th, right there nipping on the back of the other Acura. How did your car feel at Road America after the adjustments that Mo talked about was made to your car? Ollie, if you'll start, and then Tristan, you kind of add your thoughts to it.
Yeah, the race started. I managed to hold on to 3rd. JB put some serious pressure on me in turn 5, so we had a good battle down into turn 5 and on the exit, but all clean and good racing between teammates. I have to say, then expected the 2 Penske's to kind of clear off, but we noticed straight away we got really good race pace, and they were saving fuel and playing a bit of a game, so we managed to stay right with them. Unfortunately for me, I got held up in traffic coming out of turn 14, the last corner, went to overtake a Porsche, and as he pulled in the pit lane, Jonathan got a run on me and enabled him to pass me down the front straight. But then, we stayed in position, got a little bit unlucky with traffic, but we pitted just behind the Penske's, and I was able to hand the car over to Tristan. But, we were surprised at this point that we were in the race, and from that first couple of stints, we could see that, we could go out and win the race and if not, score a podium.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Ollie there 100%. Like we were running 3rd and 4th. I was following Ollie at that point, and first 10, 15 laps go by and you're like, this is going to be okay. I think we knew they were playing a little bit and saving fuel, but so were we. And we're like, just keep saving fuel, stick behind. That a little bit of negative outlook going before the race after qualifying was quickly turning from inside the car to maybe we have something for them.
Yeah, definitely. We expected them to clear off. If I'm really honest, I thought it'd be a fight for 3rd place. And then when they didn't clear off, like JB's mentioned, you start to think, hold on a second here. We've got the pace now, and with a little bit of extra fuel saving, maybe a bit of strategy, or, even a bit of traffic on track, we were starting to realize we were in this race. Hold on. Despite the BOP changes, we can win 3 in a row.
And Tristan, what did things look like from your position behind the steering wheel?
Yeah, no, I mean, even before I got in the car, watching Ollie on the opening stint, same thing these guys alluded to. I was just, watching, the steady gap kind of just stay the way it was. They weren't pulling away, and it was kind of just staying at this kind of 3-second gap. which I was pretty surprised of, because we all thought again that they were just going to take off, and we would just kind of maintain position and hope for a miracle. But we had great race pace, and even when I got in the car, I think my whole goal that my whole stint before I then again gave it back to Ollie to finish off the race was really just to save fuel and put the car in the best position possible. So I remember distinctly just keeping the same gap between me and Montoya, just making sure he didn't get away, but also not to to burn the fuel. So then when I handed it back to Ollie, it was we were in a great position. Both Mazdas were right there for the fight, and it was awesome stuff to watch.
Yeah, it was certainly a fun third week on that stretch of the summer. Really quick, Harry, you get in behind the wheel of the 55 after Bomber gets out, and then you go right after Montoya. And boy, I don't want to get too dirty about this, but he starts throwing some monster blocks on you up the hill, out of 5, race control warns. And what was it like running behind him? What were you thinking as he was all over the track?
There was lots of bleeps going on for sure. Yeah, it was really tricky. I had a couple of good runs, and there was, I kind of questioned. Just sometimes you have to question on the radio to the stand just to make sure that they can see what I'm seeing, and it's everyone's sort of seeing what's going on and making the correct calls to bow up in race control. But yeah, it was pretty dicey at times. I mean, we never actually hit each other, but it's not easy to pass one, and he's certainly he's going to fight to the death. And but
I don't know. You did it 2 in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm pretty tenacious racer, so I wasn't going to give him any quarter. And I think at one point I thought it was either going to end up in a crash or a pass, a bit like in Watkins. But yeah, in the end, I just knew that it was going to come down to traffic and or strategy. But like the other guys have said, I was just excited that we were in the race and had the opportunity to go for the win.
Yeah. Well, you end up getting around one about a lap, maybe 2 laps later on this incredible move on the outside down the front straightaway, and you're able to clear him. And now we fast forward to the last 3 laps. Dane Cameron's back behind the wheel of the 6. He finds some serious speed and just starts reeling you guys in, catches the number 55 out in front. Harry, you're behind the wheel. Did you know Dane was coming as quick as he did? Did you think he'd be able to catch you? What were those last 2 laps like at Road America?
Yeah, well, we kind of skipped a little bit of the story there. So the only issue that I had when JB handed the car over to me, great position on track, perfect car, super fast, ready to see what we could do, was the air conditioning stopped working. And I just checked the temperature. It was 85 degrees that day. And there was on the commentary, and I watched the race back, there was a lot of chat with the commentators saying, they're telling him to change the air conditioning and save fuel. And I think they thought it was a fuel saving tactic, but we were just trying to get the thing working again. Because it was a triple stint. And, I didn't really feel it so much in the first stint. I started to feel a bit more in the second stint. And by the end, I was hanging on for dear life. The copper temperature was through the roof, and I was really running out of water. I remember saying on the radio for the last pit stop, just make sure you get me a drink. I don't care about any of these strategic calls. I just need a drink. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And so I was dealing with that. But to be honest, the last stint, everything was reasonably under control. I kind of had a look back at the gaps, and it was like I sort of went out for the last stint like 4 seconds ahead of Dane, and they kind of maintained the whole way through. And then literally the last 3 or 4 laps, I just had the worst run of traffic you could imagine. In the carousel, if you catch a GT, for us, it's like a half lift and then flat. And obviously you carry that speed all the way through the kink down to Canada corner. If you catch a GT, it's like a brake and a downshift, and there's nowhere for you to go. And I just started catching cars there, and then I could see him in my mirrors and thinking, blimey, this is going to be, I was kind of visioning like 3 lap Sunday afternoon drive to victory, and all of a sudden there was going to be a serious race on my hands. And I just kept thinking, oh, surely, you know, this is traffic will go my way in a second, and I'll be the one who pulls 2 seconds. And it just, I think it was the second last lap. I could see it happening from about 3 corners before, a GT car, and I was like, I'm going to meet him right in the middle of the carousel. And, you know, I just had to block Dane as best as I could. And then basically, yeah, 3 of us onto the last lap, pretty much nose to tail. And I just thought, you know, the odds, you know, 4 times in 4 laps, surely not. Like, surely, like, this is going to go fairly clear for me on the final lap. And I didn't have any traffic in the carousel, but down into 5, there was a GT car, and I thought, you know, I'm gonna lunge in. If I'm gonna lose this, I'm gonna lose it on the front foot, not by sort of backing off and potentially giving him an opportunity to pass. And when you watch the footage back, I don't know if the GT car made a mistake or just knew this was the win and got out the way. So I went in super deep, and Dane didn't have to worry about the GT car because he was off the track. And so it was a little bit forceful defending on the last lap, but I think, as you alluded to with Juan, no more forceful than he was. So I think Robin's racing all's fair in love and war on that one, and yeah, held on for the win. So
watching it, and I'm thinking, you know, we could end up winning it when I saw them 2 dive into 5, and you know, it got very aggressive coming out of 5. So I'm thinking, you know, they could end up taking each other out. But you know, in the end, I think I have to say Dane backed out pretty sensibly at the time, and it was some really good racing, even to watch in 3rd place. You know, but I was looking for my opportunity to make a move.
It looked like a movie, honestly. Like, you look at, like, you know, like Driven or like Rush, you know, they like really dramatized the racing. It was literally like that. I mean, it's crazy. I can't remember the last time I watched a live race with that kind of racing, and it was crazy to watch. From your outside move, Harry, to the last couple laps and watching Ollie behind. I mean, it was just nuts.
I appreciate it, man. It was like I say, it went from 0 to 100 pretty quickly in terms of action on those last.
And Oliver, really quickly, you talk about wanting to be involved in catching them and battling on that last lap. 5 went okay for you, but then the carousel didn't. You get stuck behind the McLaren in GTD, and that kind of ended your involvement in that race. But boy, right up until the carousel in the final lap, Jarvis, you were there with them.
Yeah, we'd had a really good, you know, race, really. We got caught out a few times with traffic, but the pace was there. And, you know, Dane picked up his pace in that final stint, and I went with him. And, you know, I was really thinking, right, you know, we can get second here. And then we started to see the gap come down to Harry. At the time, I wasn't aware whether that was his tyres had dropped off or traffic. And, you know, but I was really focused on Dane and getting Dane. And, you know, you say traffic, it's so important in this kind of racing. You know, Harry made the right move in 5 by being aggressive and managed to hold on. And Dane actually coming out of just into turn 7, he made a move around the outside of a GT car that you wouldn't normally make. It was completely on the edge. But what it meant was into 8, he passed a car that I wasn't able to. And what that meant was I got stuck in the carousel. So I went from being right in the fight 1 second. And as Harry's mentioned, we lose like 2-3 seconds behind the GT car. So that, you know, by the time I crossed the line, I'm not even in the race for the win. You know, but it was really exciting up until then. But yeah, just caught the car at the wrong moment. Otherwise, I think, you know, heading through the kink into that last section would have been even more interesting, because I certainly would have fancied my chances of getting a run into that. Is it turn 12 down into?
Yeah, Canada corner.
But you know, that's,
yeah. I mean, I
play a huge role. They make it exciting for the fans, but also for us in the cockpit.
Yeah, it was definitely looking like it was going to be a 1-2 finish, you know, for sure. But, you know, the thing about the carousel, though, is that, you know, you probably can't see it on TV, but you only get the racing line. It only, you know, it's 1 car length or car width. That any further than that, it's just marbles everywhere. I mean, we've all tried it, you know, in practice, trying to go outside of a car. You can do it maybe the first couple laps, and then halfway through the first practice session, you're in the grass. I mean, it just doesn't work. You can't do it. So
it's literally like isn't it? It's the best way to describe it. It's like,
yeah, it is. It's instantly ice. You can't drive through it. I mean, and then you crawl through there and you're still sliding. It's just like a flat slide through there. It's crazy.
Tristan, Tristan's spot on. You see us overtake inside, outside on so many corners, but the carousel, it's just impossible. I mean, I tried it in test, and honestly, I literally just went off in slow motion, because the moment you get in the bubbles, you back out the throttle, but you turn, you brake, and just nothing happens. So it's one corner, probably the worst corner throughout the whole season to try and overtake a car or get stuck behind
It's the longest corner on the track too, isn't it? It just goes on forever. So you're stuck behind a GT car, and it's seconds. It's literally seconds. That's why, you know, it can either make you a hero or, you know, put you down 3 places. It's crazy.
It's so true. And I just remember thinking, as I was starting that last lap, come on, surely the carousel's going to be clear this lap. Please, you know, you're already thinking about it, and you're still 7 corners away from it. You're probably, you know, 1.5 miles away from that corner, and it's all you're kind of thinking about.
We fight in every corner, but you come in through the track and you see a GT car, and in your mind you're working out, where am I going to catch him? Because, you know, you're gaining half a tenth here or losing half a tenth there, but it's all pointless if you catch that GT car in the carousel. So as a driver, you're working out already in your head, like, Harry, them last few laps, I can just imagine him in the car going, oh no, you know, and that's like he says a mile before he's at the carousel, he's thinking, oh no, I'm going to catch him right in the middle. And he knows that lap's 2-3 seconds slower, and nothing he can do. You know, there's absolutely nothing he can do with that.
Yeah, you probably know going into like 3, like, oh no, I'm going to catch him in the carousel. I got to push. I got to get him in 8 or something, you know. But
the good news is that, unfortunately, the 77 did get caught out by a little bit of traffic. But the better news is that the 55 doesn't, and is able to hold off the 6, able to hold off Cameron and Acura. And it's Mazda's 3rd win in as many races. And Tristan, as you said, everybody, definitely on the timing stand, and everybody watching thought it was going to be another Mazda 1-2 finish. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But man, what an incredible race. Road America, and Mazda scores its 3rd win. We're going to step aside really quick, talk to Mo Murray about what that win meant for some people that weren't at the first 2, and other impacts it had on Mazda Motorsports and some of its key figures. So stick with us. And now we're back with Mr. Mo Murray, the man who knows everything about Mazda. Mo, we've heard the drivers talk about it. Mazda is family. Family is Mazda. Every team has important people that go into its performance, but Mazda has some really special individuals I know that you want to talk about right now.
Well, that's true. I've been around the Mazda program since first race I worked with the Mazda team was the Lime Rock, the final round of the Grand Am series in 2012. And shortly after that, we reached out to a then 16-year-old Tristan Nunez and asked him to join our program. And through all those years working with lots of different folks around the Mazda program, we went into the Grand Am GX class with the diesel powered Mazda 6s. Not the fastest cars in the world, but technically a very interesting program. And then we took those diesel engines into prototype racing in the early days of IMSA after the merger with the Lola chassis, and we did those for a couple of years, and then we switched to the gas engine and eventually got into the DPI program, and all the way through the Team Yost and now the Multimatic relationship. And there's lots and lots of people come together to make Mazda Motorsports the group that it is. It's as the drivers have alluded, it's very, very much a family, and we know when we're at the race, we're among friends, and we have a really good group of people. Not the largest group in the paddock, but certainly a really good group of people. Ironically, for the summer of 2019, for the 3-win run we had, some of the key people who had been involved in the program for a long time weren't at Watkins Glen or CTMP. Al Arena, our team photographer, she takes all of the great photographs that you see online or you see that Mazda Motorsports using. She had her beautiful daughter, new addition to her family, early in the spring in 2019, and hadn't yet returned for Watkins Glen or CTMP. We had an intern work with us for the last 2 years, very bright young man named Cedric Burkhardt, Cedric the intern, we called him. He also wasn't at Watkins Glen or CTMP. And myself, although I go to many of the races, I was at Watkins Glen for practice, but on Saturday afternoon, Saturday lunchtime, I left because I had to go take my daughter to school. So Al, myself, and Cedric were not in either Watkins Glen or CTMP. So we were all at Road America, but we arrived there thinking, are we the jinx? Are we the reason the team started winning because we weren't there? You go for so long without winning races, you start to think there's all kinds of reasons. So getting a win at Road America while everybody was there was very important and a really important thing for the family, for the Mazda family. One of the key people, maybe the key person through all these years, was John Doonan, of course. John was the director of motorsports for Mazda for a long, long time. He has since moved on to his role as president of IMSA. But you have to understand that although that news didn't come out until after Petit Le Mans at the end of the year, some of us knew from early in the season that John was leaving the Mazda program and was going to move on to this role at IMSA. So getting wins under his watch were very important. It was very important for all of us to make sure that John's tenure at Mazda ended in a good way. So get the Watkins Glen win was certainly check that box, and then of course getting a second one a week later at CTMP, very important. But then we arrive at Road America. So John is a Chicago boy, born and raised. Road America is his local track, his favorite track. His dad raced, and when John was, I think, 6 weeks old, his mom took him to Road America. He'd been there, spent most of his life in and around Road America. So, going into that race, we don't know that we're going to win. We're not sure that we're going to win because of the BOP adjustments. Is it really possible that somebody would go 3 in a row? I mean, everything was, all the stars were lined up to say, maybe this isn't going to be, we're on a roll, but maybe this isn't the weekend. You remember, you alluded to it in last week's show that it had been 7 years from Mazda's last prototype win, the 2012 ALMS P1 win at Road America with the Dyson Mazda Lola. The thing that people don't know is John Doonan wasn't there that day. John was homesick that day. So he wasn't part of, or at least present, for the last Mazda prototype win at Road America. So this track being his home track, very, very important to him. So we arrive into the race. We've got, the 4 drivers we have they're spectacular, as you guys have seen. They're awesome, all 4 of them. Coming off of 2 wins, but BOP is going to conspire against us. We'll see what happens. John's mom is there, lovely, lovely woman who supports him tremendously. His wife, Kristen, his 3 kids are there. It's a big family occasion. And in the back of our minds, we know this is going to be John's last race as the Mazda Motorsports director at Road America. We know he's very much still involved, and that's a great thing for the sport because he's a super guy. So for John to get the win at Road America and for us to be able to share that with him and put his family on the podium, I think we have a photograph someplace of John's mom and his wife and the kids and Jonathan Applegate, another very important part of our program. And everybody up on the podium celebrating that win at John's home track. John was in floods of tears afterwards, maybe more so. You asked a question last week of Tristan, were the tears bigger at CTMP or Watkins Glen? And he said Watkins Glen. I guarantee if you asked Doonan the same question, he would say Road America was where the tears flowed most because of the lifelong relationship he had with that racetrack. And that's an illustration of how much family plays into what we do at Mazda Motorsports. It's very much a familial spirit where we go to the races and we share meals and we share travel and we share our space together, and we're we've all the people involved have been around the program for a long time. So certainly it was a great family outing that day to have to close out, especially in such a spectacular place. Road America is just an awesome, awesome racetrack. And to share that as part of the family, the Mazda family, and then to build off of that, and as we're continuing to do today through the balance of the season, and then moving into 2020, we will get back to racing soon. Moving into 2020, keeping that family together, especially around the IMSA paddock where John is still a big part of that. It's very important to us. Nelson Cosgrove is now on board as the director of motorsports for Mazda, and is super awesome guy. has been a great addition to our team. And we're looking forward to going racing and keeping the family focused on winning and stuck together as we always have been.
Well, keeping the family focused on winning is the perfect way, I think, to sum up Mazda Motorsports. And you can't talk about this stretch and the dominance without talking about John Dune and Mo. Thanks for always being a massive part of the Mazda Motorsports family. We're going to get back to talking to our drivers to finish this thing up.
Thank you, Tony, and best wishes to all of our Mazda fans out there. We absolutely appreciate you.
And so now you guys, the four of you, it's the third and final time that Mazda Motorsports and Team Yost go to victory lane in 2019. That year did not start off very well, but boy, the middle part of it really went to your guys' way. So I guess I'll just start up with Bomber, and then you guys can each take it from Jonathan. But boy, pretty incredible stretch, and it's a very special season when you look back on 2019 for Mazda.
Yeah, incredible season. It was a long time coming. You know, just to get that first win was a long time coming for Mazda Motorsports and this program and all the hard work everybody's done. But then, like you say, to get 3 in a row, I mean, just insane. It's super special. I mean, Tristan and I, we've been a part of the program for a lot of years. So to witness and be a part of that amazing stretch of wins and victories and the highs of motorsport, which is why we do this. It's just been a long time for me and Tristan to bask in that glory. So it was very, very special. But you know, it just comes down to everybody's hard work. Is a pleasure getting multiple wins with Harry and the 77 getting a win. And, you know, we all work so hard as drivers and as a group and communication and all of that. It's a healthy environment. So when one car does well, you're excited for them even more so than I would say a typical factory program would be.
Yeah, I mean, you know, 2018 was definitely slightly disappointing. We thought the wins were going to come. I think that pressure then built up at the start of 2019, and it was getting to a point where, you know, is this win actually going to happen? It needed to happen. And we all said once it happened, we felt like we'd win 2 or 3. We didn't realize that we'd win 3 in a row, and certainly not under the circumstances we did. So it was amazing, and JB touched upon it. But I think the fact both cars had a victory as well made it even more special because we could really share in that. You know, it's a very close-knit team anyway. We get on very well. But the fact that both of us sort of shared in that enjoyment, and JB and Tristan now being in different cars as well, you know, it was important for both of them to experience that victory. And for me and Harry to be part of that was something very special.
And Harry, when you look forward to the rest of 2020, finally going to get going again this summer, and it will become Mazda Motorsports with Multimatic. What are your visions of the 2020 race season once it resumes or almost really begins?
I think we started 2020 really where we wanted to be, you know, really strong pace at Daytona, another podium for the 77, first time. The program podium in a 24-hour race for quite a while, so it's fantastic from that point of view. Really was, you know, that summer was absolutely, you know, just really special. We'll remember that for a long time. And I think, you know, you really see the emotion in all the videos and the celebrations afterwards. And I think part of that comes from the tough times and the tough moments, but also from all the hard work from the collective unit of every single person in the team. And I think it's just, everyone is just so thankful for each other's effort. And I really do feel like we're one of the most close-knit teams in the championship. I think the fans see that as well. And, you know, just really special to be a part of it with the 3 guys in this crew, as well as the endurance drivers too. So yeah, I'm just hopefully more of the same. I think, you know, we've just got more knowledge. I think we're better prepared. We've done another step forward over the winter, which clearly was shown in Daytona. And I think we can really start attacking these marquee races. You know, the Sebring's Petit Le Mans of the season. And as well, we've already shown that, you know, the 2-hour 40 races, we're a force to be reckoned with. So it was fantastic. And I think from the 55 point of view as well, you know, Road America the 2019 was a very, very poignant moment because it was Vince Libertucci's first win as a race engineer. Watkins Glen Larry Holt and Vince kind of engineered it together. And so we're really seeing, obviously, new talent coming through from Multimatic. And I think he's a name that we're going to hear about for the next 20, 25 years, as long as he wants to be engineering cars. And, hopefully us 3 drivers can, myself and the other 3 can be a part of that for maybe not 25 years, but certainly another 10 or 15.
I don't know. I think Bomber's got 20 in him. What do you say, Jonathan?
Yeah, well, I think he kind of left and out for some people might not make it 25 years. He's probably thinking
I
about
would never say that about you, Jamie.
Yeah.
Well, the to end on something that Harry said about having pride in being a part of the Mazda Motorsports team, it's been something that's been asked by me it's been asked of me to pass on to you 4 drivers by Mazda Motorsports and Mazda Corporate. The entire Mazda family is incredibly proud of the 4 of you, as well as the endurance drivers. And Harry talked about having pride in being a driver on this team. Well, Mazda's asked me to tell you guys and remind you guys that they're incredibly proud of the summer, the year, and the job you continue to all put on for the team and for the family. So to you guys, all 4 of you, thanks for being on today's show, and thanks for creating some really memorable Mazda moments. Well, there you have it, folks. 3 weeks of reliving Mazda Motorsports moments, and we wrap it up at Road America. A very emotional win for everybody on the team, including John Doonan. So that'll do it. Not sure Mazda Motorsports moments is done, but we are done looking back at that 3-week stretch in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to keep up with everything Mazda Motorsports by tuning into all of their social media channels.